Okay, hello everyone. Today we gonna talk about plant structure. But before that, hopefully you are now in a good and also healthy condition. Okay, so let's begin. To begin with, we gonna talk about the basic concept of the plant, which is the plant hierarchy. As any other living things, plant consists of the same component, which is they made from cells, and the cell together become the tissue. Specific tissue has specific function. They become organs, and the organs uh, consist of leaves, roots, stem, and everything become what we know as a plant. So because why? Because plant is multicellular, means one plant's body consists of many cells. And again, the composition similar to other organisms, which is they consist of cells, tissue, organs, and organism itself. And in terms of the organs, the plant has three basic organs. They are roots, stems, and leaves. And this organization can be organized into two system. The first one is root system and the second one is shoot system. Shoot is actually something on the top of the ground, and root is something on the bottom of the ground, or the soil. Roots, they rely on the sugar that is produced by photosynthesis. Yes, of course, because root cannot do photosynthesis, right? And shoot rely on water and mineral that absorbed by the root system. So together, root and shoot system, they are one big system to support how the plant can live. This is what I have told you before. So again, there are two major systems in a plant's body, which is the shoot system, something above the soil, and then root system, something under the soil. And in if we want to specify the detail of shoot system, we will find what we call as a stem, and then we will have also leaves. And leaves component consists of blade. Blade is this one. This is the blade, and then it has also petioles. Petiole is the stalk of the leaf, and then together we call them as a leaf. And next to leaf, most of the time we will find what we call as axillary bud or lateral bud. And on the top of the plant, we will also find what we call as apical bud or terminal bud. And if we are lucky, we will find the flower of the plants. And the plant itself is the reproductive organ of the plants. And then in terms of the stem, we will find what we call as node. Node is the attachment of the leaf, so the location where the leaf attached, we call it as node. So here, this one is node, this one is node, this one is node, this one is node, this node, node. And the gap between one node with another node, we call it as internode. Okay, node, node, and the gap in between, we call it as internode. Now we're gonna talk about the roots. Roots is very important for the plants because it has three major functions. The first one is anchoring. Anchoring is like hold the plant in the soil to keep it stay there. That is anchoring. And absorbing, yes, of course, because the function of the root is to absorb mineral and also water. And then storing, and not all of the root has this specific function, but we can find the example, the root that be able to be used by plant as a storage. For example, we can see from cassava or sweet potato, that is the type of the storing roots. Roots In general, we have two type of root, which is taproot and also fibrous root. Now we're gonna talk with the taproot first. So taproot, mostly we can find it in dicot. They have one main vertical root, and also they have lateral roots or the branch of the root. So simply say, just imagine a big trees, and then you will find main root and then the branch of the root. That is what we call a taproot. And then in some case we can also find what we call as adventitious root. What is that? Adventitious root is root that can grow from another part of the plants. For example, it can grow from the stem or it can grow from the leaves. Those type of roots that grow from stem or leaf, we call it as adventitious root. Another type that I told you before, another type of the root, we know what we call as fibrous root, and this fibrous root mostly we can find it in monocots, and also we can find it in a fern, which is the seedless vascular plants. So monocot and also fern or pteridophytes together they have what we call as fibrous root system. And in this type of root system, they have unique characteristic, which is mostly the root having the similar size. So there is no main one because all of them having almost the same similar size. And in plant again, uh, in some of the function, it's for water and mineral absorption, and the location where it takes place is actually in the root hairs. What is root hair? Root hair is the trajectory or uh, the extension from the epidermis in the structure of the plants, especially in the epidermis of the root. This is that what we call as root hair. So this is what we can see if this plant is as a new grow plant. Most of the time they will make what we call as root, right? And this root, because root used to absorb the nutrients, they will make what we call as root hair, and root hair itself is the modification or the extension of the epidermis cell in the surface of this plant. Okay, that is root hair. Now roots, they are very unique. They have many modifications, and some of them is very common. For example, we can find what we call as prop roots. Prop root is the roots mostly in fibrous root that grow from the node. To find the prop roots, we can find it in corn. We can find in a corn, and then we can find also in pandan trees. So they have mostly prop roots. And then we have also what we call as storage roots. Like I told you before, some of the plant has made the root as their storage. And for example, we can find it in cassava and beet, something like this from the picture, which is beet plant. And we have also aerial roots. Aerial roots is the root that grow mostly from the stem, and then it hang on the air to help the plant get some nutrients. And then we have also what we call as buttress root. Buttress root is a very unique because it's very big and it support mostly big trees to anchor to the soil. And then we have also pneumatophores. Pneumatophores, if you go to beach and then you find some mangroves, so you will find this kind of adaptation of the root, which is very important for them to get the oxygens. This is prop root, and we can find it, like I told you before, in corn. We can find it, and it has a support function in the case of the plant has grown quite tall, so it's support to anchor the plant. And then modified root as pneumatophore, yes, like I told you before, it's helped to capture the oxygens. This one buttress root, very big, like I told you before, and it support mostly major big trees in the forest. Very tall, and the size also very big of the of this type of roots. Stem, actually I have explained all of them. Node, yes, which is the attachment of the leaf. Internode is the segment between node and node, so that is internode. And then axillary bud or lateral bud, apical bud, and then yeah, I have told you before. And then the things that we also can see, which is the unique characteristic of plant, which is what we call as apical dominance. And this apical dominance will help to maintain the dormancy in non-apical buds. Simply say like this: if we do not cut the apical bud, so the tree can grow very tall. But when we cut it, the tree can make become shorter, and also they will grow the lateral bud. The easiest example we can find it from uh, tea tree. The tea tree actually, if we do not cut the apical bud, it can grow very tall. But because we need the tea for our consumption, so most of the time we cut the apical. That's why they become so short. That is the example of what we call as apical dominance. And not only modification in the roots, we can also have modification in the stem. And the most common one, we have what we call rhizome. Rhizome, we can find it in gingers, and then turmeric. Yeah, that's kind of rhizome. We can also find bulbs like in shallot or onion. And the unique thing of that case, do you realize where is the location of the stem? The location of the stem is just a little part here, and the other, or the rest here, is mostly leaves. And then we can find also stolons. Stolons we can find it in strawberries. And the last and the unique type of stem, which is the tubers. If we do not see it closely, we might think that this one is a root, right? But actually, this one is a stem because it consists of node and internodes. And this type of tuber, we can find it in potato. Okay, now we're gonna talk leaves. The part has been explained. They have blade, they have petioles, and they have also panes. And in terms of panes, they have two type of panes. In monocots, they have what we call as parallel panes, and in eudicots, they have what we call as branching panes. So now we will have what we call as branching pane. So let's see, in a simple leaf, this is the characteristic of the dicot. So you can see this one. Yeah, that's the type of the leaf pane. And then this one is simple leaf, so only one leaf. But we have also what we call as compound leaf. So one leaf consists of leaflet. What is leaflet? Leaflet is smaller leaf. So if this one is only one blade, it has smaller blade, what we call as leaflet. And not only the compound one, we have also what we call as doubly compound leaf, means it has even smaller leaflet in contrast to the compound leaf. And all this type of leaf, we can find it in dicot or eudicots, because in monocot we cannot find it because they have what we call as parallel vein. And again, evolution is important. That's why how plants body look like is having a very specific function to how they live. So the modification that we see before is having a very close relationship with its function. So for example, the onion, they need to do that because they need to have a fleshy and also bulky leaves to support their growth when they want to do the reproduction. That's why they have such kind of structure. Okay, so again, evolution is very important to make the looks or the function of the plant's body. And in this case, we talk about the modification of the lip, right? So lips is very unique. Also seems like the other organs, they have some of the modifications. Some of them are tendrils. So tendrils is lip that modify to act like a hand, so it can grab and also hold something. And most of the time they use tendril to climb to get the better light, because plant need light to do the photosynthesis. And then some of them, the modification become what we call as spines, and spine is very important. Mostly they have two functions. The first is uh, to be used as a protection organs, and the other is to reduce the to reduce the loss of water. Some of the leaves, they become storage leaf and become succulents, and in this case the leaf storage a lot of water. So in many desert plant, they have a structure of what we call a succulent plant, which is consists a lot of water inside the structure. And then some leaves, they are very unique. They have very unique characteristic, which is they are be able to reproduce vegetatively by using the leaves. So this type of leaf we call it as reproductive leaf. And some other modification, it seems like almost seems like leaf, but the color is different. So this type of modification we call it as a bracts. And bract itself, why the color is so bright, because it has a function to attract the pollinators like a bee and then butterfly to come to help them to do the pollination. That's why bract is very important for attracting the pollinators. This is tendrils, modification to hold or to grab in order to get a better light for plants. This is succulents, mostly for desert plant adaptation to storage water. And now let's see about the tissue. Tissue of the plant consists of three major tissue. The first one is dermal. What is dermal? Dermal simply say like skin. That's why the skin product like consists of the word derma. That's why dermal is skin. So that's the first. And then the second one is vascular. Vascular is the organ that used for transportation, whether it transport water and nutrients, or also the product of photosynthesis, that is vascular. And then the last, we have what we call as ground tissue or the fillers. So now let's see the composition in a plant's body. So the outermost, which is the dermal tissue, okay, the outermost. And then in the internal, this part is the area for transportation. That's why the name is vascular tissue. And the pillar in between the dermal and vascular, we have what we call as ground tissue. And epidermis, mostly we can find it in non-woody plants, part for epidermis. And on the top of the epidermis, we will find something substance waxy, which is what we call as cuticles. And this is very useful for them to prevent the water loss from the epidermis. The easiest example of uh, cuticle, we can find it in the leaf of what's that? I don't know what is in English, thallus. So the water cannot stay in the top of the thallus leaf, right? Because it has cuticles. But in a woody plant is a plant that has wood. So woody plants, mostly big plants, the epidermis has changed into structure that what we call as periderm. And periderm is quite strong, and together the skin of the plant, we call it as bark. Okay, so that is periderm. And other than that, there is also some modification of epidermis, which is what we call as trichomes. So trichome is modification of epidermis, and in some cases they have a substance inside that be able to be used as a defense mechanism from the insect or some other predators to the plants. Right, so vascular tissue, they have two, very, very popular. I believe you know it very well, but most of the time you forget which one is and other function is. So they are two, right? So the first is xylem and the second one is phloem. So xylem is used for water and mineral. So xylem, again, it's used for water and minerals, while phloems, it's used for organic nutrients. Most of the time they use it to transfer sugar that is made from photosynthesis. So simply say like this, the water and minerals absorbs from the soil that will be transferred to the plant organ, that is through xylem. And then phloem, it will transfer the product of photosynthesis from the leaf to another part of the plant's body. For example, it transferred it into the roots, it transferred it into the stem. So it transferred from phloem. Okay, and then now we're gonna talk about ground tissue. Ground tissue, mostly in young plants, they have two, which is pith and a cortex. In general, they have the same characteristic, but the location on is different. Pith mostly in the central of the young plants, and then the cortex mostly the location in between vascular bundle and then the epidermis. And ground tissue, this has a function. It's very slightly depend on the plant. Some of them can be used as storage, some of them can do photosynthesis, and some of them can do as a support. And there are three: the ground tissue, they are parenchyma, and then collenchyma, and the third is sclerenchyma. So how to see the difference? The difference mostly in the cell wall flexibility and also thickness. So parenchyma is the thinnest and also the most flexible in terms of the structure of the cell wall. And then collenchyma is in the intermediate. So it's thicker than parenchyma, but actually thinner than sclerenchyma. So it's still flexible, but slightly less flexible than parenchyma. And then sclerenchyma is the thickest and also the hardest part of the ground tissue. So that is sclerenchyme. The example of sclerenchyme, you can find it in a pear. Yes, you can find it in a fruit, inside the fruits of a pear. So there will be something that like really like a sand, right? It's quite hard. So that is the example of sclerenchyme. And also we can find sclerenchyme in coconut shells. Yes, coconut shell is also sclerenchyme. This is the structure of parenchyme. Very flexible, very thin cell wall, that is parenchyme. Sclerenchyme is the hardest one. Like I told you before, that's why the example is like coconut shell and also the something inside the pear fruits, so that is sclerenchyme. And sclerenchyme consists of two types. The first is sclereids, and then the fiber. So what I told you before, in a fruit, in a pear, which is sclereid, that's structural like that. And then fiber, yes, fiber, like in many people diets, so they always said it's very important to eat fiber. So that is the fiber. Fiber is actually sclerenchyme, and in our digestive system, fiber is so important because it helps to absorb the water, so we can digest the food much better, and also we can remove the waste from our digestive system much better if we eat some fiber. So again, knowing this fact, you should eat fiber for your diet. This is how it look like. So it has a very thick structure. That's why, like I told you before, this is the thickest structure in the ground tissue. So the thinnest is parenchyme, the medium is collenchyme, and then the thickest is sclerenchyme. Now we're gonna see closely in the xylem. So xylem, in the general, uh, how to imagine xylem easily? Xylem is a wood, So if you have a wood in your house, so that is will be xylem. And if we see closely under the microscope, we will find two structure, which is the pestles and then the tracheids. So pestle and tracheid actually, uh, based on the size, the pore of the size of the pore. Pestle is much bigger than tracheid, but the function is similar. It's actually to transfer water and also minerals. That is xylem. And then has been explained another things, which is phloem. So what's the difference is if xylem dead at maturity, phloem in the other hand, they're actually living at maturity because the function is to transfer of the sugar. So let's see how the phloem look like. So it has the structure like this. So it has what we call as sip tube element. So sip tube element that connect between one cell with another cell, and also it has sip plate. So a sip plate is structure with some pore in it, so the nutrients will go this way. And not only the sip element, in the next side of the sip element they have also what we call as companion cell. Companion cell is a living cell, so it has nucleus and also some other organelles because the function is to support the things that is required by the sip tube element. So for the vector, the nutrients and everything is supported by the companion cells. Okay, so it's been explained. Okay, now we're gonna see the plant slide. So how plant live. I mean, live in this case, how long they can live. So how long they can live is determined by two type of growth. The first type of growth, we call it as indeterminate growth. It's actually a growth which is unstoppable. So as long as the plant can get the nutrients, they can grow. That is what we call as indeterminate growth. And some other growth is determinate. So this type of growth is limited. So if the plant organ has achieved certain size, so it cannot grow anymore. That's why we call it as determinate. And in terms of life, we have three type of plant lives in terms of how do they complete the life cycle. First one, we know what we call as annual plants. Annual plants, they can live only at least a year, mostly less than a year. So what they do, they just make flower, and then they do reproduction, and then they give some seed, and after that they die. So that is annuals. And the second one is biennials. Biennials, at least they can grow for 2 seasons. So if one season they do making flower and do reproduction, and after that they will do again for the second time, and after that they will die. That is biennials. Most plants that we grow, especially for the need for fruits, uh, mostly perennials. Why? Because they can do reproduction for many years. For example, mangoes. If we have one mango trees, we can get fruits for many years, right? So that's why the example of this plant, we call it as perennials plant. And last, now we come to the last part. Now we're going to talk about the basic flower structure. So let's begin from the bottom. So the bottom of the plant, we have what we know as peduncle, and some also say as pedicel. What's the difference is peduncle is in single flower, but pedicels is in inflorescence. What is inflorescence? Inflorescence is the flower that has so many flower. I mean the part of the plant that has so many flower, that is inflorescence. So peduncle is one single flower. So in this case, the name is peduncle because it's only one single flower. On the top of that, we will have what we call as a receptacle, and then in this receptacle we mostly find a green structure, seems like a leaf, but that's not a leaf. And its organ, we call it as calyx or sepal. And then on the top of that we will find some bright color of the flower, and we call it as corolla or petal. And together, sepal and petal, we have specific term to describe, to tell them. The specific term for sepal and petal is perianth. Okay, and then now we're gonna talk closely to the reproductive organs of the plants. So we have two actually. The first is the carpel, or another name we can call it also as pistils. So carpel consists of the structure like this. On the top, it has stigma. It's the place where the pollen grain come. And then we have a style. And on the bottom of the style, we will have what we call as ovary. Ovary is the future of this flower to become fruits. And then we have also ovule. Ovule is the future seed. Okay, so together, this is what we call as female organ. Consists of stigma, style, ovary, and ovule. Together, we can call them as carpel or pistil. Next up, we have male reproductive organs consists of anther. So anther is the site where the grain or pollen grain is produced. And then we have also filaments. Filament seems like a style here. And then filament. So together, anther and filament, we call them as stamen. Okay, so this is the basic structure of the flower, but actually there are so many type of the flowers. We know like incomplete flower, complete flower, male flower, female flower, and many other type of flowers. But in general, this is the basic structure of the flower. So what about the modification? It's very specific, so depend on the plants. Even some plant they have only stigma, as I mean sorry, they have only pistil, and some plant they have only stamen for their reproductive organ, and some plant also sometimes they don't have calyx. I mean, yeah, in this case there are so many variety of plant structure, but in general you need to know this very well because it's the basic for further understanding about the structure of the flower. All right, so I guess that's all enough for the plant structure in general. Hopefully you can understand what I told you, and thank you so much for pay attention, listen to my explanation. So, and again, hopefully my explanation will help you for your learning. And thank you so much. We'll see you again next time, and bye.